Welcome to another edition of Dentalpreneur Secrets, where we help you build an even more amazing life of significance so you can take care of the people you love, support the causes you care about, and really change the world for the better. And I'm so excited to have with us today Mike Massotto. And Mike is the host of the Dental Road Warrior, founder and CEO of Staff Driven Dental. And wow, is this going to be an exciting show. And by the time we finish today, you're going to know that it's okay for you to ask for help in your dental practice. You don't have to know everything. And you're going to know how a coach can really help you build personal and business wealth inside of your practice. You're going to have some simple ideas that you can walk away with that are going to have a big impact in your practice. And you're going to know the three foundational policies to build an even better dental practice. But what I'm most excited about is you're going to walk away feeling inspired and motivated for the future. Like I said, Mike has 10 years of business consulting success in healthcare and coaching executives all across America. He has a podcast and a show called The Dental Reality Show that's absolutely fantastic, The Dental Road Warrior. He's out there. But what I really like about Mike, and you're going to sense this pretty quickly, he's full of energy, he's dynamic, he's a great speaker, a great coach, and he has a passion for helping you and your team win in the game of dentistry. Mike, welcome to the show.
It's so great to be here, man. Thanks. And, it's funny when you read my bio, I think we said the 10 years of business consulting stuff. That was when I first started. So I've been in this for almost 25 years now. That's how fast. I was a lot younger then.
Oh, my God.
I started everything else. So that was 10 years to start going into it. And now I've been doing this for 25. So that's how long I've been doing it almost. Time goes fast.
Yes, it does. So how did you get started 25 years ago? How does one get started coaching dentists?
Yeah, I get that question all the time because I went back in time to my 1980 self, and I said, look, I'm from the future, and I'm you, and your career is going to be in dental. I would say you're crazy because I would never have believed that in a million years. You don't go to dental consulting school, that's for sure, because it doesn't exist. You don't wake up one morning and stretch out and think I'll become a dental consultant. It's kind of one of those things where it found me. I would always had a passion for helping people. I enjoyed doing it. I was always coaching people in some capacity. Matter of fact, out of college, I was in the health and fitness industry as a coach. I started two of the first personal training gyms in New Jersey when personal training was a big West Coast fad. These crazy people in New Jersey, in California back in the day, were spending $30 for a session, for personal training. And I thought they'll never do that. Now that was back in the day, that was a gym membership for a year. But to spend $30 for a session, why would anybody spend that money? They were saying, well, they spent it because they wanted coaching, they wanted accountability, and they wanted someone to teach you to do it right and hold them accountable and give them a diet. And it took off. I mean, our best clients were women because the women would come in with a magazine. I want to look like this woman in this picture in 12 weeks, but they were paying for a result. They weren't paying for use of equipment or information. They wanted coaching, So that's how it kind of started, in that. And one of the clients I was coaching at the time was a doctor who had an alternative medicine practice, and said, "Oh, can you come in? I would coach you and give you some consulting, and you could do marketing and sales and or promotional for new patients in my practice." And I said, "Well, sure, it's a new opportunity. I wasn't going to do health and fitness forever, and that wasn't a lot of money in that long term with my college degree." So I said, "Sure." So he was a product of the consulting, and he had a consultant he worked with, and a coach. And it was great for me because I was one guy in a field with 300 women in the room, which is fantastic back in the day. You can imagine with me with my Bon Jovi here, it was business in the front, party in the back. I get up there and I ate it up. I sat in there for I thought this was the coolest thing in the entire world because I loved the whole concept of getting new patients for this practice a game. It was fun. It was a challenge because I really believed in what he was doing. That was all into alternative healthcare at the time, chiropractic care, alternative medicine. It was fantastic. It was transformational for my life and my health. And I went there, and I never forget my mentor was about a 5'2" powerhouse Jewish guy. So you picture me, I was this hulking Jersey guy standing next to me. "Come on, Big Mike, come up in the front, give a share." And it was great because you saw when you implemented the coaching how it would work. I really got into doing that kind of stuff. And I said, if I ever did this is what I want to do. I want to do coaching. I never knew I was going to start a company, but through time and the success he had in his practice, I was bringing 30 to 60 new patients a month into his practice. That was my average, all on my own. This is before internet really took off. This is before social media, before all those even before websites. This is how far back we're going right at this point. And basically, a dentist in town got wind of this. Basically, said, "Hey, I did a health fair. This is way back, and he was there, the dentist, and I recruited him to come in to join us for this health fair." And he said, "Look, can you do the same thing in my practice like you did for his practice. I said, well, sure, if I could learn the business, I really didn't know anything about dental whatsoever. I said, if I learned the business, I think I could probably do it. Well, one dentist became two, became four, became eight, I had to get a new career, so it was one of those things where dentistry just kind of pulled me in and I never looked back. So in the beginning where I was doing all kinds of industries, I have a very big background in corporate coaching. I did coaching in corporate America during the dot-com era before that went crash. I did PR firms, law firms, accounting firms. And then I did alternative medicine and dental. And then I just settled on dentistry almost 25 years ago now, because it was really jack of all trades, master of none. You have to really focus on one industry. So that's kind of how I got into dentistry. Long story short, or hope that's short enough, where it just kind of pulled me in. And now I look back all these years later, and now here I am. And that's all I do day and night around the clock is work on coaching dental practice.
Oh, excellent. And actually, you and I share a very similar story in that respect. I was an advisor working with all sorts of clients, and then met and fell in love with my wife, who happens to be a dentist. And
I read that. That's pretty cool. That's very cool. I think that's pretty awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
And the big struggle was, like you said, I could do a whole bunch of great things for a whole bunch of people, but I didn't really have in-depth knowledge of any one industry. And so I couldn't actually help my wife solve the most fundamental challenges in her practice. And now, decades later, I've specialized, and just like you, that's all I work with are dentists. And today, right, the situation that we're in, right, COVID-19, social uncertainty, economic uncertainty, political uncertainty, the world is a mess right now. And
there's political uncertainty. I didn't realize that.
Just a wee bit. And so what's the impact that's having on practices that you work with? What opportunities do you see out there for dentists who are motivated to grow and run their practices really well?
Yeah, well, I was talking to you off camera. One of my favorite quotes that I use a lot right now these days, especially with COVID, when you hear all you hear is negativity, right? I mean, it's doom and gloom. The world's coming to an end. It's pessimism of everything. And I haven't had this long enough period of time when the world's come to an end multiple times. Since I don't know how I'm still sitting here, because the world has ended multiple times since I started doing this. I always refer back to 9/11. In 2001. And I live in New York metropolitan area, and I was right across the river. I saw the towers go down. On that day that happened. And life was never going to be the same for anybody, right? We were never going to recover from that. We did. And a few years later, there was the economic crash, 2007, 2008, when everything went out the window, and everything was in an uproar, and everything. Doctors were telling me we're in collapse. We're never going to and we did. And I worked with dentists through that whole thing as well. And then, if you know, from this part of the country, when Sandy hit here, and when Super Sam Sandy hit New Jersey, New York, it was devastating. For months, the people recovered. Some of my practices were literally flooded off the map. When I was working with in the shore. And we're still here. And now we have the pandemic. And I always like to say that the pessimist sees calamity in every opportunity, and the optimist sees opportunity in every calamity. And that's where we are right now. I mean, ultimately, I'm an ultimate optimist about everything. I have to be. And keep people positive. I didn't have a coaching program for COVID recovery. When the whole hit the fan and everything shut down. I just brought my coaching, which was on site, on virtual. So what I did with 80 to 100 people a week is I brought in people that I knew, people like you. I had an accounting advisor. I had an OSHA advisor. I had a guy who used to work for the CDC. I had a lawyer to navigate all the legal stuff that was going on. And we just would powwow up as a community. And a lot of it was just therapy. It was just getting people and then keeping them in the right place so they don't collapse. They didn't go to a bad place, and seeing them through that 90-day shutdown, basically. And when, March, April, May, by the time June hit, all my clients were ready. They had the PPE, they had the PPP, they had everything lined up they needed, and they hit the ground running. And some of them, didn't even shut down at all completely. They were just seeing emergencies, which is in some of my practice, are seeing 20, 30 new patients a month because all the practice around them shut down. They weren't even seeing emergency patients. So there was opportunity there, and they took advantage of it, and all of them right now, I'm happy to say all my clients made it through it. They're all thriving and doing well because they have that good mentality, and nothing's changed. It's the same situation right now with the uptick and everything. It's all about how you go about your mentality, how you go about approaching it every single day.
Yeah. Well, right. Just like Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of the UK, says, never let a good crisis go to waste. And right, there's opportunity.
I love that.
There's opportunity out there if you know how to take advantage of it. And so, there's certainly a lot of good ways to run a practice, but you also wrote a book called The 25 Surefire Ways to Destroy your dental practice. And what's one or two of the ways that you see dentists really destroying their practices? Let's talk about that first, and then we'll build up to some of the great things that people can do, because I really want to dive into those 3 foundational policies that are just so fundamental in a practice.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that book up. It's like it's become like an iconic book, even though it's like I don't think if I could probably count, well, when did I sell it? I used to sell it at events personally. I said, oh, the author will sign it for you, and I would sign it, best wishes and good luck destroying your practice kind of thing, whatever all the time. If you have one of those books as a classic, it's been multiple reprints. It wasn't about the money to do that thing. It was like almost like your business card doing it. And that was in 2003. And 17 years later, it's been through 3 or 4 printings. I just kind of give it out now as a fun thing. But the great thing about that book, and I got the concept, and you'll appreciate this from Ben Stein, and Ben Stein is a big economic, and people who know what Ben Stein is, if you want to go back and watch the classic movie, the now classic movie, which is in color, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, from the 80s. People refer to these movies, these are the classics now for the younger generations, okay? Just I'm dating myself. I worked in the movie theater when that movie came out. Put that in perspective. I was working the theater when that movie came out. I said it about 1,000 times back in the day. But he was the guy who was Bueller, that line, that's Ben Stein. And he wrote a book, How to Ruin Your Life, one time. Because there's so many self-help books out there about how to do all this. So he did it in reverse, like sarcastically. Well, if you want to ruin your life, this is how you do it. It's like a primer, how to ruin your life. So I said, well, you know what? There's so many books on dentistry out there about how to improve your practice and do all these kind of things. Well, I wanted to write the most outlandish book possible, the other way around, of how to really, if you want to ruin your practice, do these things. And if you're not laughing at these things, then there's no hope for you. Because you're what's wrong with this? If you think this is perfectly normal, then you're in trouble. That's what I used to tell people all the time. And it's a really simple little read. But the interesting thing, that stuff's not made up. That was, I don't know if you read the book, and I don't know if you got a copy of it, or I can get you a copy of it, but that's out there. It's based on those are real stories. It's based on all the crazy and insane things I've seen doctors and staff do creatively ruin their practice and their lives over these years. You can't make this stuff up. It's really incredible what I've seen in my time. And it's classic examples of how to do that. So that's kind of how I was doing the book came to be.
So what's one of those examples of how someone destroys their dental practice?
Now you put me on the spot. What was the chapter that I always put in? Like one of the chapters is hate kids, about that. Like, I hate kids, well, kids are little adults, you know what I mean? And I understand, you don't have to be a pediatric practice, but why would you hate kids? I've had dentists tell me they hate kids and I want to have kids in my practice. Okay. I'm not saying, but if you're a general practice and family, I love when they put family cosmetic implant, it's like all on one sign, right? We have to be jack of all trades, master of none. But if you're going to put family on your sign, that implies kids are on your website as well, too. You can't hate them, okay? Or create a situation where you don't want to see them in your practice. And I've heard that many, many times before, about hating, kids. That's one little example. I run a funny chapter about how hate kids, or nickel and dime your staff to death. That was another one. Make sure you always be cheap with your staff as much as possible and don't pay them and don't give them raises or increases, and make sure you cut corners with them as much as possible. That's a very successful concept you can use to destroy your practice. That's another chapter of the book, for example.
So there's plenty of ways to destroy your dental practice.
Yes.
If you listen to this, my assumption is you don't want to destroy your practice. You want to grow your practice. You want to build that amazing life of significance. And to do that, you need some foundations, right? Every good business has some foundations. And so, Mike, you talk a lot about the 3 foundational policies that are really required to run a successful dental practice. What are those policies?
Right. And then again, I try to people always say, well, you need a business degree to run a successful practice. There's a misconception out there that you need an MBA. I don't have an MBA. I was going to be a lawyer. I went to school my political science was my undergraduate degree. I thought about law school. I would have been a great litigator. I missed my calling at the time in that way. But that was what I was thinking at the time. So you don't need an MBA. There's so much you can learn about business for being an entrepreneur, out there. And I've made the mistakes, for you, or just listen to someone who's been out there and done it all for you. Closes that gap. How many years it takes you to get up to speed to learn these things on your own. But you don't need to. And I try to simplify this as much as possible. You got to dumb this down to a 6th grade level, just like you should do with your patients when talking dentistry with them. Dentists just tend to be so smart, and you're talking over people's head and they don't get it. Well, I guess the same thing with consultants try to be so damn smart when it comes to this kind of stuff, and there's tables and graphs and statistics and piles of this and that, and you lose people. First of all, if it's not relatable, it's not enjoyable, it's not something easy to do, they're not going to implement and do anything with it, right? So that's what I try to do. So I try to do some basic core concepts and make it really easy fundamentally so doctors can understand and we'll follow through with these things. And one of the core things you need with business, a practice runs on policies, in agreements you make with your patients, your staff, all right, that's what it runs on, okay? And these policies really become operational, kind of systems that you use in your practice. There's systems attached to these policies to make sure they get implemented, all right? Because the thing about policies, don't bother having policies unless you're going to enforce them, and keep them in place. But the three major types of policy you cannot do without in practice. These are foundational things. You can assess after this, listening to this right now, do I have these in place? All right. And they are operational policy, staff policy, and patient policy. These are the big three. If we're going to distill it down to everything, because when you look at a practice, doctors tend to get stressed. There's tens of thousands, there's thousands of things wrong with my practice. I don't know where to start. How am I going to handle all these issues and problems I have? Truthfully, what I found is you can distill down all the problems you have in practice to about 5 or 6 core things, right? And when you treat the source, guess what happens? All the other things go away. People say, oh, I'm running around putting out fires. Stop running around putting out fires and take away the matches. Okay, then more fires popping up all the time. Go to the source of the problem, right? And these operational policies and staff policies and patient policies eliminate, virtually all the problems you have in practice. Right. And so operational policy really is a step-by-step way you want things done in your practice. For example, how you were talking about this, how you answer the phones, okay, in your practice is an operational policy. It's such a simple thing, and I don't, secret shop practices. I never done that. I know there's companies, we'll send you a disc in the mail, how bad you suck and how terrible you are. They've done that to my clients. Of course, they're going to tell you, so they're going to tell you you're great. They want to sell you a program. All right. So I've had this, I've had that happen before, but the thing is, you need to have some kind of system and scripting to answer the phone. The things I hear when I call offices, it's amazing, what I hear. And I was told to call the practice. I'm just calling because the doctor told me to call, and I'll hear doctor's office, please hold. So wait a minute, that's what script was that? Okay, it's like I called some random doctor and now I'm on hold. Okay, you might as well just burn your money away. That's the entrance point. Those phones are the entrance point in your practice. How people sound and what they say and what they do on that phone is critical. When you call over there, I don't want to make robots out of people, right? But you have to have some kind of guideline to talk to people. And when they call, what phone call we get every day today? Ring, ring, ring. Yes, you take insurance. You take Aetna. It's not even hello anymore. It's the first question you get in the office is, what insurance do you take? All right. How do you handle that when someone who's a shopper is on the phone? Okay, so having an operational policy on how to answer the phones is a big one. Okay, as for example, your hygiene system is an operational policy. Step 1 through step whatever. I have a 15-step hygiene system, I think it is, where you lead a patient through to get a desired outcome every single time in hygiene. The way you assist is an operational policy. The way you sell, lack of an effective sales system, number one lacking system in all dental practices. Bar none, okay? I have not yet met a dentist that the first time out of the gate that I met them, they had a really great sales system in place. Usually it's a doctor talking to the patient chair side, they put it out and they hand it off to somebody who locks them in a room and whoever emerges victorious in 30 minutes is the winner. That's not the best way to have a sales system in a practice, but you need to have a sales system for that as well too. An operational policy on sales and how we're going to handle money in this practice, okay? So there's many of those. Your new patient, you experience how we handle new patients. That's an operational policy. So there's many of those, and those are the ones that I write up in my curriculum. I have it all templated out so people can follow, and they just customize to their practice. That we all come through an agreement, right, of how we're going to implement these operational policies in our practice, step-by-step way of doing things. They're in writing, they're agreed upon by everybody, they're trained on with everybody, and that becomes the way we do business. Okay? And all the great companies that we go to that that are not dental practices, you are drawn to them because they have good operational policies in place, right? As opposed to, I use Starbucks as an example all the time. How does Starbucks get away with charging $8 for a cup of coffee? It's because they have a really great operational policy from all the way straight through the process here. And then that service better be top notch with great people. Otherwise, I can just go to Dunkin' Donuts and just stand in line in a maze of tapes, in a place that smells like a wet mop, and have someone push 3 buttons and get whatever comes out of the machine, and that's what you get there. So it's a different experience. So operational policies are critical, and these are things that patients can see and every day. So that's something they experience every day. And that's what separates you from your competition. How solid are my operational policies in my practice? So that's number one. Staff policy, and this is really critical to understand, is really your employee handbook, your job descriptions, your employment agreements. Now, this is the flavor of the times, right? Employment law issues and staff issues are the flavor of the times right now. The issues with that, and not being up to speed on these things. It used to be slip and fall. I don't know if you remember, Tim, back in the day, those late night TV commercials come on, hurt on the job.
Yep.
Oh, such and such. Call Smith, and whatever, and come and we'll help you, get your employer for you getting hurt on the job. Well, you don't hear about that anymore. And the reason being is because the laws have changed and they kind of closed up those loopholes to protect the employer. Well, guess what? Where they haven't caught up to speed right now is protecting the employer against your staff. And I'm not saying staff are all bad and evil and terrible and whatever it may be. And they're not 99% of the time. Okay, it's usually the people that get in their ear about stuff. Oh, did he let you whatever? And they give them this bright idea that we'll just take your case and do this, because there are a lot of legal things that dentists just unwittingly fall into because they're not up to speed on these kind of things, like sexual harassment, unfair labor practices, hostile work environment, discrimination. And again, it may be harmless. They may not intend to do these kind of things, right? But because you're not understanding how you're supposed to protect yourself and do things by the law, and how there's federal and state guidelines of how things are supposed to go and do, and you don't avoid these pitfalls. And then you're asking for trouble later on if you're not up to speed on this whole thing and not protecting yourself. And I always tell people, you shouldn't be practicing in this day and age without EPLI insurance, employment practices liability insurance. Okay, it's a must in this day and age. And whereas most of my practice, I see when they first meet them, they're lucky to have an insurance rider, a throw-in umbrella policy for $30,000. Right? You need to have more coverage, a lot more coverage than that in this day and age to kind of cover yourself. So these are things you need to know about, because again, this is a back of the house item we don't think about. It's not in our forefront every day, but it only takes one of these issues. Okay, it only to cost you 6 figures easily. Not to mention the stress, the lost work time, and everything else. So you definitely want to make sure you put some attention on this at some point and have this set up to do that, right? So that's a more important, and you have it all buttoned up tight. Okay, and by the way, you should not do this through your the internet. You should not go online and try to get a downloaded employee handbook. Okay, because those are templates. You can have more liability from that. Don't get it from your payroll company. Do not get it from your state board. There are lawyers that do this. Okay, and you can do it for a reasonable fee. It doesn't have to be tens of thousands of dollars. And if they are charging you that much, it's a ripoff. I have a firm that I work with. It costs maybe $4 or $5 grand soup to nuts, and they do all the stuff for you, and they deliver it, and then they update to the staff, and they update it yearly as laws would change. But you have to have this in place, okay? And those, but forget the legal reasons for that too. There's a lot of legal reasons why. But the employee handbook and everything, and the staff policies, I call them the rules for happy living. Okay, it has everything in there that everything comes up all the time, because the staff jump at, well, how does sick time work? What about time off? What about my vacation? What if someone passes away? What if I get pregnant? What about bonus in this bracket? But you have to understand, that's why you make policies about all that kind of stuff. So it's fair and equitable for everybody. It's all in the book, and we all manage everybody by the same way. And that's why you have an employee handbook too, so it's not just about the legal reasons, okay? So that's the third. The third and most violated of all policies, which is the biggie, which if you implement effective patient policies, you can see your revenue in your practice jump 20%. Okay, 20% minimum if you implement these patient policies. And there's about 8 to 10 big ones, that I outline out there. And you train your patients on these. Okay, and I want to talk about the word policy for a minute, Tim, if it's okay, if I have the time. So people understand, because this idea of policy is this nebulous thing. The word policy, I'm ever interested in the origin of words, right? Comes from the Greek word politeia, which meant citizenship. Okay, this is one for you to use in the future. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. So if you think about it for a second, how do we get the word policy from the word that used to mean citizenship? If you think about it, from what makes you a good citizen in society? You do what? You follow the policies. Okay, so I say, if you want to have better citizens in your practice, meaning your patients, have better policies. Okay, and you give them rules and guidelines. Because patients, they love to come in and make up their own policies, right? Well, the last doctor I was at, it was great. I never paid there. They sent me bills. I left there owing a lot of money. It was great for me. It's almost like that.
I can cancel my appointment anytime I want. I don't have to show up. I can be late. I got the greatest dentist in the world.
It's perfect. Yeah, exactly. And then what happens is it becomes a practice of the people. And this is what happens over time. It's not your practice anymore. right? It's a practice of the masses. It's a communist practice. You're trying to run a communist practice in America and make money. You don't make a lot of money in communism. You just don't. I always tell people, you have to instill a new government in your practice. It's called a benevolent monarchy. Okay. You're the king of your practice, or the queen of your practice. I rule all my loyal subjects with all humility and kindness. Okay. But the buck stops with me. It's not even a democracy. You don't even get a chance to vote. Okay. I make the rules, and this is what it's going to be. And you lay it down and you stick to that. Okay. That's how it has to be in your practice. And you put that in place like that. And that's how you run the practice. I always say, manage by agreement, not by emotion. Okay. It takes all the emotion out of, oh, I'll make her pay. She's a bad patient. No, let's give her a break. She's good. You can't do that. First of all, it's very stressful on the staff to do that kind of stuff, to play favorites or go after people you don't like or whatever. And not only that, it's only fair. Okay? You get yourself into trouble that way. So just manage it by agreement. So you have patient policies. Now we're all aware, and then we teach the patients. And it's kind of a re-education and deprogramming of your patients. It takes about when I first institute this, it takes about a good year to go through the entire practice to re-educate all the patients that are there. Because these are the patients that have been there for years that have us trained just the way they like it. Notice how I worded that. These patients have us trained just the way they like it. And God forbid if you're trying to, they're like, wait, change something? Okay, right? Talk about famous quotes. Woodrow Wilson once said, if you want to make enemies, try to change something. And I said they should have probably reworded that quote to say, if you want to make enemies, try to change something the wrong way. Okay, there is a way to change. Okay, there is a way to change. And I teach this in my program because people don't know how to change. Okay, there are very specific methodologies to go to change. You just can't go, okay, that's it. I'm getting rid of insurance. Okay, tomorrow. I've had it with insurance. Insurance sucks. And I agree. Okay, but if you do that, okay, you're going to crash your practice. Okay, if you tell people tomorrow I'm banning, no shows, you're going to have mass hysteria. If this is the case, you have to do it a certain gradient way, step by step to get them to a certain point. There is a way to do all this kind of stuff. That's the how-to, right? That's where coaching comes in. There's always a what to do and there's a how to do it, right? And how to implement it for you, because every practice is different, right? It's everybody. It's how is this Mike? Mike's talking all this great stuff, sounds great, but how is it going to work in my particular practice with this particular staff, in this particular town, in this particular economy, in this particular? You see, there's a lot of variables that can make it go wrong, and that's where the coaching comes in and make it work. All right, but patient policies you put in, and I do it in the form of a letter. It's called my valued patient letter, which I think I should have copyrighted because I've seen this letter in various forms all over the internet. And I walked into a medical office. I'm not kidding. This is a true story. I walked into a medical office one day in the vicinity of a dental, and they actually had a version of my valued patient letter on the front desk, on a clipboard for people to sign. I was like, what the hell? I was like, it got into medical? I was like, couldn't believe it. I was like, it must be good. Imitation is a serious form of flattery, and it was some watered down version of what my thing was, but it goes over the policies and trains them in this, with a nice intro, and we have them sign it. We make hard agreements with them, and it goes over the things you talked about. Cancel. What do you do with cancellations? How does cancellations and no-shows work in this practice? What happens if you're late? How does payment work in this practice? How do referrals work? What if there's an upset? It goes over all these things, and we manage them by that. We get them to agree. You can get patients to do anything as long as they agree. Okay. If you say, well, if the person doesn't show, well, I don't know. I just want to let you know that last time you didn't show up and there's a charge for $100, okay, by the way, you're going to lose them and piss them off, okay? Because the opposite of agree, right, is disagree, okay? So if you don't make good agreements with people, you're going to have upsets, right? And that's where it starts with having good patient agreements. And you have them agree to these policies. And it's a wonderful thing when you have them in place, because now you're managing them by that and rather than emotion every time, and they agree and they go along with it and they're fine. And I'm telling you, the only people will give you pushback when you make this change are the 10 percenters that are going to cause 100% of your problems. Okay, those are the ones that are, when you go over the zero balance office policy, I like to call it, which we don't have people owe us any money. The only people that are going to give you pushback on that are the ones that are not paying you now. Okay, or have a large balance and they don't want to pay and whatever, and that's your chance to draw the line and straighten it out. Okay? So, and if this stuff didn't work, I wouldn't be teaching it. I wouldn't be in business for all the years that I'm in right now. It works. It's all how it's implemented.
Yeah.
Well, right. And as you were talking, right, I had a big mind shift. And I hope you listening have this too, right? Because we all know the importance of policies and rules and procedures. But Mike, I loved how you talked about, right, citizenship, right? Right. We're members of a community of the practice that we're privileged to be a part of, right? Whether as a patient, whether as a staff, or even the dentist, right? We're all privileged to be part of this community. And I love once again how you talked about making agreements, right? These are communal rules that we're going to agree on how to behave, right? And by doing those simple things, by setting standards of how this is going to work, communicating those clearly, we're going to all be better citizens of the practice. And that to me was just such a mind-blowing shift and such a different way to think about policies and procedures. So you talking about citizenship, what a gift and what a new way to think about your practice. That's so powerful. Wow, we're just
Yeah,
blown away.
I'm glad you love that. Look, it's really the origins of words. It's really interesting when you look up things. I teach different things, and I want to teach about sales, for example. A lot of times, oh, what a dirty word. Sale. It's such a horrible, dirty word, and it's such negativity attached to the connotations of words, right? About things, it comes up. And if you look up one of my favorite definitions in ancient China, okay, the origin of the word sale, the characters used to mean to assist, aid, and support someone getting someone they really need to get. Okay, nothing wrong with that. That's what's a whole new perspective on what's it. That's what sales really was. I'm here to assist and aid and support you getting like dentistry that you really need to get. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay?
Yeah.
As opposed to used car salesmen, rip off, high pressure, this, doing it for their own advantage and nothing for your benefit, that kind of thing. So you have to sometimes change your thinking. And policy sometimes is this word where people have a lot of misconceptions about policy, and restrictions and whatever. But that's how society runs. Otherwise, we'd have anarchy. If we didn't. So think about your practice. If it's chaotic, if you're telling me my practice is chaotic and it's anarchy in here, and I'm stressed, and my staff, it's out of control. The operative word. I'm going to give you another gift. I hope this is okay because I know you and I just met you recently and I love you already. You're a great guy. And what you do, control equals income. Okay, that it's a very advanced economics formula. But let me try. Control equals income. Okay. So if you ever, so if you see someone who doesn't control their spending, okay, for example, and control gets a bad rap. Oh, you're not going to control me. I'm a rebel. It's like duress, force. No, control has nothing to do with duress or force. Control has to do with putting positive direction on something. That's what it really is. Okay. So if you don't have a positive direction going on your practice, okay, you're going to see money just hemorrhage and bleed out of the practice. So the more control you have by putting in systems and putting in policies and putting in training, right, the more money we make. Okay, you ever have one of those days in practice? Your wife knows this, right? When everything feels like it's gone to hell and it's nuts. Ask her how much money you made that day. Nothing, very little. Then you have a day when everything just goes like this. It snaps, it flows, it clicks. Look how much money we made on that day, okay? Because things were in control, right? So this is what these policies do, and again, I'm trying to drive this home because I want to see, well, take the time to do this because doctors will spend thousands of hours and thousands of dollars on training for clinical and for the toys they buy for their practice. They love the toys. The dental meeting, and they'll go to these dental shows, right? And they'll buy these pieces and tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars because they feel they need them for their practice. Well, guess what? Okay, this stuff, is just as important and more important because none of that stuff's going to work without good training in place and good coaching.
It's so true, right? Control equals income. Almost like Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL. He says discipline equals freedom, right? And so often these things that we think are not connected actually are, and such powerful little nuggets that you're sharing with everyone.
I love that. I love that one because that's a great thing. As a person who's been doing training for years, I was a competitive natural bodybuilder for a while back in the day. I'd be in the old fart category now if I ever did it again. But I just did it for my own challenge myself back in the 90s, and people were like always giving me critical about discipline. They give you such a hard time, like, oh, it's so restrictive. It's like, no, it's freeing, when you do that, to be able to have that kind of discipline in your life, because I'm well and I'm healthy and I'm vibrant and I have energy and that kind of thing. That gives me freedom to be that way. So there's nothing wrong with discipline in your life at all.
Right. So, and that's really one of the areas that a coach can significantly help with is the development of that discipline. Now, I want to back up to my earlier days in my career. And, I would always run across business coaches or people willing to help me. And all I could think, Mike, was, I got this. I can do this on my own. I'm not a screwed up mess. I don't need a coach. But then my mind started to shift and I realized, you know what? Coaches actually have a valuable role today to play. And I've been engaging coaches. I have several that I work with on different aspects of my business. But a lot of times we think, I've got to be a mess before I can hire a coach, or I don't need a coach. This is a sign of weakness. And so, what would you say to that kind of mentality and that kind of thinking?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I always say when people see me speak and I joke around, like I said, look, I didn't come out of the box this way. You know what I'm saying? If this has been a work in progress. I look back at myself back in the day and I go, oh my God, this was how I used to be, back in the day, But one of the things the thing about coaches, it gives you an awareness of your blind spots because you never see yourself as other people see you, right? I mean, one of those things is a true gift to be able to see yourself as other people see you, I mean, look, I talk fast, right? I always tell people I talk fast, okay? But I'm not a fast talker. There's a difference.
I'm gonna actually slow our recording down to half speed for everyone. So don't worry.
I always tell people, play it back on slow play later. You'll get every word, which is great. But that's just my upbringing. I grew up in a very loud Italian Sicilian family, and if you didn't talk fast and loud, you didn't get heard. That was how it was. So at one point in my life, I was unintelligible. When I would speak in front of groups of people, I'll never forget the first speaking event that I did. Because I'm a public speaker now and speak a lot. And over the years, one of the things I learned, I'll never forget it was a small group, it was a healthcare class, about 10 people there. A lady walks up to me when I'm done speaking. She goes, I didn't understand a word you said, but you were enthusiastic about it. So I enjoyed it. That's what she said. And it was a wake up call because you know what? I didn't realize that, that's not very good if people can't understand what you're saying. At this point, so it's one of those battles about trying to slow things down at a different pace, and especially when I'm speaking to people outside the state of this area, and being aware of that kind of stuff. But again, we all have blind spots. We never see it, and it's always good to have coaches to bring the power of that to not tap into your true potential and what you can learn from other people's experiences. Just like I told you before we came on, just speaking to you, and you put me on some ideas and some things that were very helpful and whatever. I'm the first to say I'm never too smart, that smart to let people not come into my life and help me out and give me advice and insights. It's helpful. At that point, that's kind of how I've grown to this point. And people go, well, Mike, how do you know all this stuff? How did you get coaching? How did I get here? How did I get in the shape that I keep myself in and my mental health and all my things I teach people? Coaching, having good teachers and good mentors, and this is in my toolbox now that I use for my life, and now I'm sharing with other people, to get where I am today, and it's extraordinarily valuable. I mean, in terms of there's not a better thing you can do in life for your business than improve yourself.
Yep.
Right.
Well, right. And that's really what coaching is, right? It's educational in nature. And, that's why successful dentists, successful entrepreneurs are hiring coaches, is they want to improve their existing knowledge, their skills, their expertise, and they want someone to spot their weaknesses, right? Professional athletes, right? I don't know of a single Olympian or great athlete who doesn't have a coach. But when it comes to business, it's entirely different. So many of us fail to engage coaches. And maybe that's because, right, one of the things that I would argue is a requirement for success in coaching is you've got to be coachable.
Yeah. Again, it comes down to willingness, right? If anything, all you have with people, and when you're dealing with people, is their willingness, right? And once you've lost that, you've lost everything. It doesn't matter. Okay, you can't help an unwilling person. I mean, no amount of intervention and help. And I always tell the big $64,000 question I get when I go to a practice, Mike, will this work in my practice? Will this work? And I say, Doc, let me ask you a question. Are you willing and can you change? Okay, and that's where it starts. Because the staff wants it, they're all willing. But if I have a willing staff and an unwilling doctor, it's going nowhere. Okay, if I got a willing staff, I'm a willing doctor, and a completely unwilling staff, I can make magic happen because it doesn't matter. They're changeable. Doctors are there. They're not going anywhere. Can't fire the doctor. That's their practice, right? But staff, we can always change. So if you feel like my staff is terrible, don't worry about that. First of all, they're not as bad as you think. Second of all, they can be changed if that was the case. So they're really that bad that you're saying. But it starts at the top. It starts with your willingness to do that, because if you don't have that and you're not coachable, forget it. And the reason why people don't like coaching, here's the fear, okay? That someone's going to come into my life and make me wrong, okay? And it's human nature to want to be right, right? That's the thing. And make the other person wrong. We don't want to be, because in life, all of survival, if you think about it, depends on us being right, right? How wrong can you end up in life? Dead, right? If you're really, really wrong, really big some bad, you can end up dead, right? So it's basic survival mentality that we have to be right, right? And the fear is if I bring a coach into my life, all he's going to do is tell me how stupid I am, how dumb I am, how inferior I am, and how wrong I am. And that's bad coaching. Okay. Yep. I never make anybody wrong. I don't expect, look, it'd be like you telling me as a dentist, like, you know what, Mike, you're an idiot because you can't do a one surface composite. You're right. And there's a reason why I can't do a one surface composite. I need to spend 1 minute in clinic learning how what you do. I would kill somebody if that was the case. So I can be an idiot all day long about that because I know nothing about it. Okay. So that's fine with me. And if I wanted to learn it, I'd learn it. You know, well, it comes to the same thing with this. You know, you didn't go to school. They don't teach this in dental school, not 1 minute of it, you know, at all. And it was worse. Now it's worse than ever because it's even because it's more competitive and it's more challenging than ever. Of course, you know, I don't expect you to know what I know. I know, oh, Mike, you make this sound so easy. Yeah, I've done it 50,000 times. That's why it's so easy for me. If you said you was a one surface composite, easy for you to do, doc, you say, sure. I said, can you do one hand tied behind your back, you know, and one eye covered? Yeah, I could probably pull it. If I said I was going to give you $1 million because you do it blindfolded, you probably could pull it off, you know, because that's how many times you've done it. It's almost like automatic for you. Well, it's kind of the same thing for me. That's the area that I focus on every day, you know, and I've honed over the years, you know, at that point. But that's again a coaching.
Yeah. Now in your practice and in your coaching, you see practices kind of across the spectrum. And I know we were talking, you know, before we started recording about a practice that had just absolutely tanked during the pandemic, and they kind of came in for some emergency help. And what were you able to do with that, doctor, and help them out through this process and through this pandemic?
Right. There's two basic. Let me back up. There's two basic problems you can have in practice. Okay. More bonus material for you, Tim. It all comes to me as I'm speaking here over time. And I pull it out of my toolbox. There's two basic problems you can have in practice, only two, right? Under expansion and over expansion. That's it, okay? So if the practice is under expand, that's obvious, right? I'm not seeing enough new patients. I'm not making enough money. You know, I'm not growing, right? The practice is stagnant because even if it's flat, I'm not growing or split. No, you're losing. If your practice is staying flat year into, you're losing money. So it's going down. That's a very dangerous place to be in. A practice is pretty much staying where it is. It's not really staying where it is. You know, things in life are either getting better or getting worse. All right. So it's getting worse. All right. So, or the other problem you can have in practice is overexpansion, which people don't look at as a problem, right? Well, I'm doing so great. I'm making tons of money. I got tons of new patients. I got whatever. Yeah, that's a great problem to have. Okay. But if you don't manage growth, right, what's going to happen is you're going to see it's going to go up, and all of a sudden one day it just goes down. Okay. And because what happens, it gets to a capacity that you just can't handle. You're not managing those people, that volume, all those things, right? So that's the time to look and say, look, I'm doing really great. And people don't think this way. I'm doing really great. I better strengthen what I'm doing to make sure it stays that way, right? They think it's going to be that way forever, you know, and they don't do anything about it. It's going to run on autopilot. You don't do that. But the people that usually come to me, they really come to me because I have an under expansion problem. I'm not growing. I'm not making enough money. I'm not happy with my new patients or whatever. You know, so that's what it is. So what this practice you're talking about, you know, unfortunately signed up a few months before the pandemic hit. Okay. And when I met this doctor, he was on the brink. You know, he was a solo practitioner. And think about it, the average dental practice solo practitioner in America probably makes about, I would say, 600 or so a year. And the average specialist about 750 or so, roughly. Those are old statistics. Don't quote me exactly, look them up. But that's for a solo practitioner, solo specialist. Okay. But that's a good chunk of change. When you're taking home, when you're practicing doing 175, 200,000 in revenue, that's dead in the water. Okay. And he had been in the 400s. But what happened was he had moved the practice to a different town because they had moved their home. And he was starting fresh and remodeled, beautiful facility, did all these kind of things. And the problem is no business acumen. No, he was going on like a history where he was before. So it was kind of an autopilot, making that 400-something thousand a year. Now he's in a new town, new people, new nothing. And now the practice is falling away. Okay. And it was on the brink of going under. So we got started. And lo and behold, this whole thing hits. Right. And we coached him through the whole thing. I was doing double duty. I was sending coaches in their extra time because he needed new staff. That was one of the things he was a great clinician, but not the kind of personality who was going to be, you know, over the top, you know, driver. He wanted people to surround himself with other people to do that work. So he just focused on dentistry. So great. Finally did all that, worked him through COVID. And the guy's now, we did his numbers recently. He's on track to doing the 400s again. Okay. In 1 year under these circumstances. And that's a disaster case scenario. And I'm convinced, because you know, many of these practices that were on the brink before COVID hit, they went under. because their margins were so tight and so close that when this thing hit, there was no margin for error anymore, and that was it. I had practices there. They were getting new patients through this whole calamity that was going on every month, pulling them up because they went to their office. They couldn't get a hold of a dentist, or they drove. One guy said he had a patient come into his office, and he said he came in because he went to his dentist's office because he wasn't returning his phone calls, and there was a paper sign on the door that said, "We're closed. We're good." Okay, so it's here one day, gone the next. No communication to your patients, nothing. All right, so that's what that could have been. And it's a whole different world for him right now in his practice. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have a guy that I was working with for a good year before, almost a good year before that time, implant guy, making huge numbers, solo practitioner. I mean, a powerhouse, 150 to 200,000 a month in collections, doing it. Powerhouse. Okay, can close anything, or whatever, doing great, but still, for some reason, guys struggling. I can't pay the bills. I don't know why I should have more money, and whatever. And you go in there and we do an analysis. Great, why you're not mad. Find out that there's a whole big theft thing going on in the practice, amongst certain staff members. So we uncover this whole embezzlement kind of thing, or help them get to the bottom of that kind of stuff. Get them back on track. With everything, and put everything in here now to manage his growth and whatever. Now he's back up to those numbers, and now the revenue's there, like the profitability is there, like he's supposed to be, and all he needs right now, and we're trying to is a manager, because we had to change that manager out and helping him do that kind of stuff. But having a trusted advisor now to support through this whole kind of thing was a boon for these guys. We had everything all in between, of doctors. People think you have to be, where in my average practice that works for me is making between 400,000 and 700,000 a year. Solo practitioner, one doctor, one hygienist, one front desk, wants to go to $1 million. That's their magic number in $1 million practice, right? Doing that. They're all in that same range. I would say 80% of my practices are like that. But I have some on the lower end, and I have some on the super high end. They have multiple locations. They're making millions. Their problem is profitable margins now, and in managing their team and the growth and all that kind of stuff like that too. So that's kind of the range. I work with some specialists as well too, but primarily that's the range that we work in. So yeah, they're all under the spectrum in terms of they all have their own issues.
Now the other thing that I love that you've done in terms of working with your clients is you've created a model of excellence award. Can you share a little bit about what that is and what the thought process was behind creating that and who you award that to?
Yeah, well, 4 times a year, I like to do something to really call out doctors that are going above and beyond. They're really embracing the coaching and really exemplifying the standards and the training to the highest degree. And it's a nice acknowledgement, and it gives something. We do it in a public forum with their peers there too. So it just inspires and motivates people to say, I want to be like that. I want to shoot for the top acknowledgement and top. They get it. It's a nice plaque. It's a gift card, for the team, which is nice. They can buy lunch and celebrate and whatever. And it's a public acknowledgement about things. But there are many of them hanging on walls of dental practices all over, the practice that I've worked with over the years. But it's a nice acknowledgement among them to say that, something we need to shoot for. People like acknowledgement. Doctors like to know they're doing it well. And as I said before, it's not always great. It's very easy to be critical all the time. We want to be positive and really show, set an example by doing this Model of Excellence Award for people that are out there that are in the program doing it. I mean, look, they're all successful, but they're the ones that are striving for the highest degree of excellence. I really like to acknowledge those people and set the bar high for other people to shoot for. Why not, right?
Yeah, right. Just like running the 4-minute mile. No one thought they could run the 4-minute mile until they did. And then everyone ran a 4-minute mile. So same type thing, right? Helping people believe what's possible is so important. And I would argue that's the sign of a great coach right there, is helping your people know what they can achieve.
Yeah, I mean, and again, an industry traditionally where I live in reality. I'm a reality guy. I know what's out there. If people are listening to this, there are a lot of bad, this, you find advising. There are a lot of bad people in the field that you do what you do, a lot, and it's the same thing goes with what I do. It's a shame because when I get upset, when I hear the people that have, poured all this good money after bad into consultant out there, and it's just terrible. They shouldn't be that way, and it really goes back to the people that are behind. The information is the information, but it's also the integrity of the people that are behind the whole thing. And I'm proud of myself out of that for doing this in a very difficult market for as long as I have. My reviews are stellar. It's almost embarrassing. Like people think that I wrote those. The people that write. No, I didn't write those. Those people wrote those unsolicitedly. If you watch my testimonial video, and there's dozens and dozens of people talking on it. I'm very proud of that because I guess that goes back to the dedication because that's transformational. You're changing people's lives. People ask me, Mike, you're a dental consultant, right? I said, no, I'm not a dental consultant. I'm in the life changing business. That's what I do every day. I wake up with my purpose is to change people's lives. Dentistry is just a vehicle for me to do that. It found me, and I could do this anywhere. I did in other industries before. I love to say, I would love to tell you honestly that I had this huge clinical passion for dentistry. I don't, the clinical, it's the people that I have the passion for, that are behind the whole thing. My coaches love clinical dentistry. They all have a clinical background, all of them. But for me, it's really the transformational stuff that you do. And, if I know how much time I have left, I would tell you a great story that makes it all worthwhile to me, but I don't know how much time we have left. But if you want to cut it off, it's no problem.
Yeah, no, let's jump through that. And then I want to talk about some of the innovations you're doing, and then we can go ahead and sign off. But yeah, no, I'd love to hear a transformation story. Please share that.
I mean, because you never know when you're doing coaching, the impact it has on people, right? The ripple effect, about everything, and you just don't know. You think you're up there and, because you hear, just look, as a coach, right? Just like you make, you probably make people some millions of dollars, but there's always the one, all you hear is the critical ones. Oh, Tim, you're rude. This is not working. You'll hear that all day long, but they're never going to tell you, thank you so much. I appreciate all the millions you've made and everything else like that. People tend to focus on the negative, not the positive. So you often wonder, how much the difference is impact it's making, and years ago, I'll never forget, I had done this. It was a rough year, challenging year, transitional year for me. It was coming out of the crash, 2007, 2008, it was around that time. And my program was shifting from a seminar-based model to an on-site model, which is now going virtual in many ways, which we'll talk about. And I used to teach seminars in a group format. So I would teach a class and people would come in monthly or twice a month. And we put all the offices in one room. And there'd be like 150, 200 people in a room, doctors and staff, teach my curriculum with my coaches. And they would go off and come back and share wins from week to week. And then we'd have an end of the year graduation ceremony where the doctors would graduate and then we get awards and plaques and things like that. And I'll never forget at the end of the last seminar we teach, people come up to you and say thanks and whatever, and they move on. But as I was doing this one seminar, off to my right, I noticed a woman standing there by herself waiting, and she was being very quiet and saying to herself, and she didn't come up to me, and she waited as everybody left. And she said, Mike, I wanted to come up and I wanted to thank you. And I say, why? You probably don't know me, but I'm such and such, and I work in Dr. Such and Such's office. I guess I don't know if she was a hygienist or an assistant. And I had to admit, I really didn't know because I didn't really get to personally know, all the people one-on-one because I wasn't in the office. It's my coaches, And she says, I wanted to thank you. I've sat through these seminars. And because of you and because of what the concepts you taught in this program, I had the courage to get out of an abusive relationship with my daughter. My daughter and I were getting beaten and abused in this relationship. And because of what you taught and the concepts, the motivation, inspiration you taught in the seminar, I had the courage to get out of it, and we're safe and we're on our own now.
Wow.
And that doesn't, and to this day, it brings tears to my eyes talking about that. At that moment, all that stuff goes out the window. All the crap that you deal with and everything, it's not about the money. You never know who you're going to impact, who's listening to you talk, and if what I did inspired people and I changed their life, that was all. I just saved 2 lives. It's right? That saved possibly 2 lives right there at that point. And who knows how many more times that happens, you find out you just don't know, right? So it was really one of those phenomenal stories I'll never forget, about that. But it just keeps me motivated to keep doing what I'm doing because I know it makes a huge impact on people's lives.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, right. And it's so interesting among driven entrepreneurs, driven dentalpreneurs, people like you, Mike, we've done the research and we always find that successful people want more success. And then we dive into that and we say, well, what's behind that? Is it greed? Is it selfishness, right? Well, why do you want more wealth? You've already got a lot. Well, the 3 primary things that come up is they want to take even better care of the people they love. Number 2, support the causes they care about. Number 3 is what you just hit on. And it's about expanding impact because they know they have gifts and abilities that can change lives. And so we see that across the board. And you're actually working on expanding your impact right now. And you're doing some clever things in terms of additional ways to access coaching and access help. Can you share what you've got going on there?
Yeah, ironically, I guess I talk about opportunities, never, like you said, never let a good crisis go to waste, kind of thing before. But I wasn't intending to capitalize on this crisis, but before this crisis even hit, I've been working in development for a long time on my new coaching on demand platform. It's called Dental Coaching on Demand. And it can be found at Dental Coaching on Demand, all spelled out one word, dentalcoachingondemand.com, where basically I wanted to be able to expand my reach with coaching on a worldwide level. Because and then this whole thing hit now where everything's Zoom and virtual, or you're doing things on virtual calls and whatever, and being able not to go into office as much as possible before, but this has been in development for a while, and this kind of expedited the use of this whole project, was to get this out there where people can get coaching with a trusted advisor online. Right now the big thing is right now, I think Michael Phelps is the big spokesperson for BetterHelp, Talkspace. These are the online therapy communities right now. They're very, very big. It's like your virtual couch, right? You get therapy online like this when like you and I are doing right now. You have the opportunity to do video talk with your therapist, or do live chat, or calls, or whatever, maybe for a membership each month at your hands, to have your person who's going to counsel you and support you right there. I thought to myself, wait a minute, people are going to, this is life and death, therapy could be, that if they can do that, why can't you do dental coaching? Because that's not always life and not as much life and death, there as well. So I really have went into development and creating this platform where people can do coaching now for a reasonable fee, each membership fee each month, where they have access to their own coach who knows them, and they can get all the stuff that I do virtually, whether it's working with me, whether it's my coaches through this platform, which is really cool. And ironically, we launched the site. One of our first new clients from it was from Norway. So all of a sudden, we're coaching a doctor in Norway. Good thing he speaks English. So and it's just amazing how much these people eat this up, because they had no coaching before. They didn't know any little bit of information. They're so ecstatic to have any kind of support. A go-to person. Wouldn't it be great if you're an office manager, you can just go online and go, okay, I'm going to get an answer to this problem that's facing me today. Let me talk to the coach real quick, or chat with my coach real quick, or set up a call with my coach. That's where it's going in the future, because the younger generation, wants everything online at their fingertips. They don't want to wait till you come on site and go in there and do that kind of stuff. And different world right now, that's maybe not as still not as feasible, right? Even right now, that's what we're doing right now. So that opened up a whole new world that we're launching. We're really excited. We started some professional partnerships with that, and we're ready to go full force with that. So I'm looking forward to really having that be the next wave of innovation of coaching.
Wow, how powerful, right? Having a coach in your pocket when you need it to get help on those issues. Wow. So, Mike, how can we get a hold of you? How can we find you? How can we connect with you?
Well, I mean, the best way to get a hold of me is you can put it up on, I'm sure you'll put it up somewhere here on the screen at some point,
Yep.
if people are watching this video wise. But my way to reach me, if you go to staffdriven.com, staffdriven.com has a link to everything to me. It has my number to reach me directly. It has my Dental Road Warrior series if you want to watch some of my insights and my philosophy. But I encourage people to go online, read my reviews. I'm very happy about those. And in this day and age, it's all about reviews. So important. It's out there. Go to my website, watch my testimonial video. Those are not actors and actresses. Those are real people that I've worked with to change their lives. But you can go through staffdriven.com, or you can go to Dental Coaching on Demand, or mydcod.com, and just check out Dental Coaching on Demand. And there's a great introductory video right there. Poke around there. But you can always reach me directly if you want to get some ideas in terms of what membership level might work best for you, for your particular practice. And if you just basically mention Tim's name, if you're listening to this and you mention Tim, okay, I'll give you an hour of my time. I'll give you 30 minutes to an hour of therapy with me, one-on-one. I'll be more than happy to extend that with you guys and do that for anybody listening to this right now.
Oh, what an incredible gift. Thank you for offering that, Mike. Wow. Well, I'm blown away by the shifts I had in my mindset. And I often argue that that's the greatest gift you can give someone, is shifting their thinking. It's not a tactic. It's not a strategy. It's a new way of seeing the world. And wow, right? I feel empowered to ask for help in my dental practice. I love you talking about the 3 foundational policies and those agreements that you make with your patients and your staff, so that you can have a better community, right? A better citizenship in your practice. And I know I certainly feel inspired and motivated for the future. So thank you for being an incredible guest and sharing so generously with us.
You're very, very welcome. And now when you go back and tell your wife all these things now she's going to make more money and be very happy as well. You share all these ideas, because you have a live-in dentist, right? So because you try it all out with her now, right?
Exactly. I got a lot of work to go implement now. I'm going to get her on the phone with you.
Well, hey, listen to this. Have her listen to the podcast. She's probably sick of listening to you, right? So now you're going to make her listen to a podcast. So hey, you really got to listen to this one.
We may need some marriage therapy after that. But anyways, hey,
I do that too now these days.
Thank you once again for being an amazing guest, Mike. And wow, thank you for sharing so generously. And if you're listening to this, go take action, right? It's not enough just to listen. We want you to take action. We want you to build that amazing life of significance so you can take care of the people you love, support the causes you care about, really make that impact in the world. Now get out there and make it a great day.